Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Smashing Skull Sessions. A big shout out to our sponsors, Rising Suns Brewery, who produce some fantastic beer right here in Cork. If you're ever around, lads, check it out. Right, this week, lads, I'm delighted to head to Chicago, Illinois, and talk with Eduardo Cintron from the Color of Cyan. Edu, thanks so much, man, for coming on.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
You too. It's been a huge month, hasn't it? You've just released Egress.
Hmm.
Um, what can I say personally from this album? It's what I love about ambient, if you can call it ambient post rock, because there's some big climatic moments and some big crescendos, powerful music, and a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, experimentation, if there's such a thing to say. But tell me this: how has it been received over the last? Because September the 1st has been released.
Uh, so far, I mean, it's been a ride, and I love this journey. It's
Yeah.
for me, it's weird because it's the second official album of the band, and
Mm.
it's every time and it happened to me with other bands before. Like when you are about to release the second album, it's like you have the pressure to beat the first one in a
Yes,
way.
yes.
You know what I mean?
It is the pressure
Um,
album I do, isn't it? This the second
exactly,
album always is.
exactly, and
Yeah.
and and of course, I mean, I've been working in this with all these tracks for such a long time that um it the energy and the my love to them
Mm-hmm.
went in and out in many moments until I finally cracked each one of them. It's like, okay, this is perfect. I love it. Let's go. And because that for me is the most important thing. For me, it's like
Yeah,
I have to like it first. I have to love it first. I have to feel it, and then when I'm happy, then
share it.
I can share it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, like you are sort of you are the main man behind the Color of Cyan, really, aren't you? I mean, you do all the writing of them, everything. You do all the writing, basically. Do you?
yeah, I
Am I
do.
right?
I do write. Yes, I do. I write everything for for all the musicians,
Uh-huh.
but then of course they take it. They take what I write and they make it
Okay.
five times better. No, like I'm not definitely not a drummer myself, but
Okay.
then when Henley takes what I give him sometimes, and it happens with even with the bass lines and everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I get back their answer to
Mhm.
my questions
Yeah, yeah.
musically, uh, I rewrite on top of that. Like I said, oh no,
Oh,
I need to give you this moment. I need to pass you
yeah,
the
yeah.
ball. So you're not like in basketball. There's always
That's
someone,
it.
or in football, there's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
someone with the ball. But now you need the ball now. I'll stay back, and then you should highlight.
Let them work their magic, I suppose, is what they do. Like, but I suppose
Exactly.
what you create so is the blueprint, really, they do for all this, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like it's
Correct.
all what's in your head. You get it onto paper and you give it to these guys to try and elaborate and make
Exactly.
something special. Yeah. How this differs from the previous album, Agape, back in 2021.
Hmm.
What do you find
So
different?
yes, the layering of things, the over like I'm like one thing that is very apparent in this one, we have a whole quartet of strings,
Hmm.
and in Agape we have some songs with cello and some
Yeah.
songs with violin and things like that. Um, but in this one, I decided to go all full quartet, uh, and the way I compose things,
Hmm.
it's almost like I take chords and I break them down, and then each instrument have their own
Yeah.
melody, and they're all intersect, and they're all like find like notes that are sometimes don't collide with each other, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that in the music. So for me, it's a matter for me finding those moments is about creating tension.
Okay.
So so I'm always looking for that tension and release, and I feel Egress was it's extremely layered.
Hmm.
And even sometimes some of the instruments are maybe doing very simple things, maybe
Yeah.
just a couple of different notes, but and if you hear the instrument by itself, it's like um, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what this guy is doing,
I
but
know.
when you start listening to all the instruments
Hmm.
together, then that's where the magic happens. That's where you start understanding what 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 the language of
Yeah.
science.
Like bringing a string quartet in, right? Again, I love strings in music in general. But to bring them in, I suppose, and try and adapt your style of what you want, because I suppose they're technically trained completely different to how you're sharing your music with them, isn't it? Did you find that a difficult task?
No, 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 not at all. I actually
No.
give them the scores.
Oh
Like,
wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I give them exactly what they need to play.
The perfectionist that you are to do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very anal.
But like,
But
how much of you has gone into this album? So, Egress, like, I mean, obviously, family life, work life. Did you live and breathe this album since 2021, since the previous album? Has this been a journey and a half?
that's a great question because I've been and I do work with for in each album I work for a long time.
Mm,
Each album takes me like probably a good 2 years. I work on a few songs. I put them aside. I
okay.
come back like maybe 2 months later and I'll listen to them. I keep working on them. And I keep re-editing and re-editing and re-editing and rewriting, rewriting. I mean, it's a little nuts sometimes, but
Yeah.
but and Cyan music, it's me, it's my life. It's I treat the music as a film,
Yeah.
as it's the soundtrack of my life in a way.
Hmm.
And even though there are a lot of personal things in there, I'm sure like everyone have their own version of it, and
Mm,
everyone can connect to it
yeah.
in different ways. So, um, and for me, that's Egress is it's a different point of view, a different angle of my experience, um, and it it it, it takes like Agape was about like the about getting being born
Hmm.
and growing up
Yeah.
and learning on the way. um and Egress was it's an album that is mostly focused on trying to fight for happiness. Doesn't matter on what life throws at you, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like when you're writing the likes of Egress, like, can you get too emotionally involved in writing an album? You
Oh
know,
yeah,
that there comes to a stage where you can't finish it because you don't think it's ever finished. Does that happen yet, or can you put something
absolutely,
aside? Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, there are songs in Egress that actually one or two of them are like from the original iteration of the band, like from the band like 10 or 15 years ago.
That's right.
Um, and and when I during COVID, I decided to bring the project back
Mhm.
to back together, and then I called everyone and said, "Hey, I'm going to start this again," and making sure everyone was in a different country at that point, like the
Yeah.
bass player in LA, the violin player from Mexico and in Mexico, and the drummer in Puerto Rico, and even the singer, which we had at one point
Uh-huh.
at the beginning of this project, we had a singer. She was in Berlin. Um, so I reached out to everyone. I kind of like um, put kind of like put the most basic notes, and because I believe that we change daily, like we keep learning,
Yeah. Yeah.
and at that point during COVID, I was a whole different person that I was 10, 15 years ago, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So basically, I took all that music, I listened to it, and then I started to rewrite it with all my new influences and in a way that will speak to the person who I am today. So
Mm.
I do get really emotional with some with a few of the tracks,
Yeah.
uh, and I find a way to make it part of the language of Cyan right now and make it part of the story and part of the arc. Like when I'm putting together the 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 album itself, it needs to feel like there's an arc, like a
Yeah.
film. like there's acts and there's climax and there's resolution is and down, I need all these different parts in the record.
Okay, so it's there's kind of a cinematic aspect to this album as
In
well,
a,
isn't it?
in a way,
In how you write in general.
yes,
Yeah,
in a way,
yeah.
yes.
Like
Um,
like
yeah,
this music you do, like it is so emotive. This style of music in general
thank
leans
you.
itself towards the emotive side, but this album really does hit home. And as you said, it is personal to you. So when you look back and you listen to this album, and if you do, I don't know, do you sit back and listen to the album in full, start to finish? How do you
I
feel
do.
after? How do you feel after it?
Now
Mm.
relieved.
The hard work is done. It's out there now. Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm like I sit back, I listen to it when I drive in the car, and it's like because I spent so much time in it, and
Mm.
and I feel really happy with it. When I listen to it, and it's like, and I enjoy what the talent everyone brought in. I
Hmm.
enjoy what, the way they perform, the way, every single detail and every single texture and um, even when they're not playing, it's for me, it's important,
Hmm.
okay, so I feel relieved. I feel happy when I
Yeah.
listen to it. Yeah, yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Like I said, it is a very emotive album, and as you mentioned, like you enjoy listening to it. But would you consider it an uplifting album
Yes,
if you were to play it from start to finish in its
I think
entirety?
so. I
Yeah,
think so. I think it ends in a high note for sure.
that's was that how it was initially composed and planned?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end um it's about that learning process and finding happiness in
Hmm.
in a way it's the fight. It's for me, time is the and this is how I
Yeah.
see life in a way.
Hmm.
But time, it's the most important thing
Yeah.
in life for me, and how you spend it, and the meaning of each song has to, in a way, has to make, gives a nod
Okay.
to how you approach life and how you approach and how you spend your time and with who and and how.
Yeah. Like I read somewhere, Edu, I'm not sure where I saw it when I was doing my homework on you. This album sort of revolves around the storyline of two people. Am I right in saying that? And it's a
Yes,
journey that they take together.
yes, and one of them passed away, and it's about that how that person remembers the other
Okay. Okay.
in a positive way, the good things of
Mm.
that um, partnership.
Yeah, and as you said, it's nice to hear a storyline like that, but finish on such a, a big a big emotive and positive end in this album.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned here now, like this music is structured on slow builds. There's lots of layers, subtle changes in tempos and whatever. Is that how each track is sort of drafted by you in the first place, or is it just how the music takes hold of the track as you're writing it? You do.
Apologies, can you repeat? It was
Yeah, like
Rich.
this music sort of revolves around the slow build, subtle changes, a lot of textures and layers, like you mentioned earlier. And is that how you like when you go writing a track? Do you plan a track in that sequence, or is it a case of it just flows however you feel it in yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I approach each song differently, really, and they evolve
Mm,
differently as well.
okay.
Sometimes I kind of know the story that I want to tell, right? And then I start to play with long chords, and I start
Yeah.
to find chords and sounds that can transmit that emotion.
Hmm. Hmm.
But sometimes it starts in the guitar, sometimes it starts in the keyboard, sometimes it starts with strings. I
Yeah.
do a lot of, like, when I work on the strings, I start I do this. I don't play violin or anything like that, but I do the strings on
Yeah.
with my
On
keyboard,
keys. Yeah.
just the basics of it.
Hmm.
Uh, and I go with that. Like
Okay.
each song will start differently, or maybe there's an idea that I have. It's like, oh, I I I need a song that showcase frustrations, or I need a song that showcase um, um, belonging, or I have a in that way.
Yeah. So when I'm using this word again. It's about my third time. So we're talking about emotion again. So the music basically travels based on the emotion.
Yes.
It's not predetermined by a lot of, like, as you probably know, a lot of post rock and post music in general tends to follow a bit of a formula where it starts slow, gradually builds to your big crescendo. But what I
Right.
liked about this album, Egress, like, is how it diversifies a bit and drops mid tempo halfway through a track down to a very subtle string section, builds again and drops again. It doesn't necessarily have to hit that high note. Each track doesn't have to follow that formula, which is great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something that is part of the language of the band, and something that it's when I write music, it's on purpose, that I actually avoid the structures of the verse chorus
Yeah.
bridge
Yeah.
chorus.
And of
Like
course.
it's very rare. It's very rare that actually I repeat, as I see it as blocks. It's very rare that I repeat a block unless
Yeah.
I feel it's absolutely necessary to convey something. But but even when I repeat it, there's something that changed, something
Yes.
different. So it's never exactly the same.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah,
Well, look, I'm going to give everybody a taste of some of this
yeah.
music. I've decided on the track When Autumn, Edu. I don't know what your personal favorite track is. Do you have one? Does it change?
Mm, depends on the day, yeah, I will say. But I love When Autumn. It's a lot of fun to play live for sure. So it's
Excellent.
it's, it's a great track.
Great stuff. So here we go, lads. Have a listen to this track. This is When Autumn. Beautiful piece of music. Right, so there you have it, guys. That is When Autumn from the album Egress, which is out since the 1st of September. Get on Bandcamp, lads, and start buying this and support the artist. Right. I just wanted to talk there, you do, about your style of music in general, right? Because I listened to a band for a good few years now called Silent Whale Becomes a Dream, right? Again, very similar in style to yourself, and it's a band I witnessed back in Dunk a few years back. And there's not many shows that will literally have you in tears, like, and that show did have me in tears. And it's very hard to find music that emotionally, that you can connect that emotionally to, you know. But I have to say this album is one of the closest things that I've come to in the last couple of years, Egress, because I just think you can feel and hear everything that you've put into this. And I'm just wondering, did you hear of this band before? Have you ever referenced them, or have you sort of taken notes from them?
Okay, first, yes, I've heard of them for sure, and I listen to some of their music as well, but I never got any references for them. At least, I do. I would love to actually sit down and kind of like listen to them more carefully, you know,
Yeah,
because I know of them. But it's one of those that there's so many great bands out there and so many
there's so
amazing music
much,
out there.
so
That's like,
much.
uh, but it is something that I would love to sit down, you know,
Mhm.
and just go and be part of their journey as well. So
Like
it's
again,
it's in my list.
yeah, you as you said, you know the band, but don't know them enough to sort of speak about them. But and it's amazing how close you are musically, how musically connected you are with your music, like your style and your sound. Um, and I suppose there is a genre for this. Like, I mean, there is a bigger genre for this style of music. Like, well, where do you classify the color of cyan? If someone was to ask you, I know everybody hates this question, you do, but I'm going to ask it. Like,
Yeah. No,
do
no,
you
I
do you
totally get
do
that.
you pigeonhole your music at all? How would you describe it if someone asks?
It really depends for me on who is asking.
Of course.
If it's someone that knows, you know, and they know about post
Uh-huh.
rock and they know, like, you know, I will say it's neoclassical post rock. That's kind of like a
Mhm.
way to put it and very cinematic
Yeah.
post rock. No.
No.
Um, so, but of course, it depends who asked the question, and I
Mm.
can, you know, I can always say, you know, I can always name a few bands for people sometimes
Yeah.
that I love, and I'm pretty sure I got influenced by them somehow because I just listened to them way too much. But
And you know, you've just walked yourself into the next question I was going to ask, because influences, when I talked to Silent Whale Becomes a Dream back then, when I interviewed him as well, we spoke about bands that you grew up with that have influenced you as you go along. And there's so much heavy music involved in people's tastes as they grow up. Like, what did you take any of the older bands that you would listen to into Egress? Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I I've been playing in bands since I'm in middle school,
Mm.
and I played all sorts of music. I played punk, hardcore, oi, ska, traditional ska, metal, like trash,
Yeah.
and uh, you know, and even like at one point a long time ago, and I started an indie label just to help other bands in the island of Puerto Rico,
All right.
and I will produce for them, and some other friends will say, "Oh, I need bass lines for my album." I will write them. So I kind of like
Okay.
played all sorts of stuff
All right.
in my
So,
career, but big influence
mhm.
that I can just name a few, just to drop a few names, you know. Um,
Name dropping is good, Edu.
yeah,
Always
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Like I grew up listening to the band Death, you know, and I grew up listening to At the Gates, and I grew up
Uh-huh.
listening to Amorphous, and I grew up um, listening to a lot of classical music
Okay.
and um, jazz and all sorts. And there's it's called Trova, and it's kind of like a singer-songwriter usually one voice acoustic guitar and just a singer. It's called trova in Spanish, but
Okay.
like a Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
but in Spanish. But um, I grew up listening to that as well.
Okay. Gee, that's a
So
very,
all those
very
are
varied
influences, and
scope.
of
Yeah.
course, God, yeah, and then of course Godspeed,
Mhm.
You Black Emperor, and Swans, and Sigur Rós, and like
Yeah.
all those were big influences when the band actually start. Like when I first got the idea of I want to play, I want to experiment
Hmm.
with something very different. And at that time, I was playing hardcore and ska and things like that. So I was like, you know what, I have this need to explore
Yeah.
writing something that evokes something different in me.
Hmm.
So at that time, I was like super influenced by by Sigur Rós, Godspeed,
Yeah. Interesting. Right.
and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Good stuff. I mean, I like to ask people because so many bands in the post-rock scene obviously went through journeys. Like you said, you like ska bands, obviously hardcore, a lot of hardcore and punk is mentioned, and metal also. And I'm just wondering, is it like an evolution that people sort of finally get to post-rock? Is it the place that they finally end up when they sort of have had fun in all these other genres, messing around and
Yeah,
playing around?
it maybe it's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny to
Interesting
think
one.
about it that way because I still have that need of playing loud sometimes and playing like
Okay.
with a lot of distortion, and that's when I get to, like, we were rehearsing yesterday and we just spent just playing the heavy things.
As in you rehearsed as the Color of Cyan.
Yeah. Yesterday, last night we were all rehearsing.
Oh, great stuff.
We were just focused on the very heavy stuff.
Nice.
Uh, so we just like let's just make noise and wall of sounds and
Yeah,
fun
nice.
stuff.
Well, as you're mentioning, getting together, obviously getting together and playing live is another big part of sort of making ground and getting known in this scene, So what's your plans? Are you planning on getting together and touring at all?
So we're playing now in October 18th here in Chicago.
Oh, good.
And there are right now in conversations to do like a show in Puerto Rico. And like the thing with us is that I have to kind of like plan ahead,
Hmm.
um like all these shows, and making sure like, okay, that because all the members of the band, they all have their own
Lives to
projects,
live.
and
Yeah.
they also play with other people as well. So I just
Okay.
sometimes I have to plan ahead, um, and make sure that who who from the project is available. And in some cases, I do have some other people here in Chicago that will play with me,
Okay.
and even some people in Chicago that just basically are just part of the Color Sign right now,
Uh,
and they will come in future albums and record.
how many people would you hope to have playing live together as a band? If you want to create the sound and the energy that's
Yeah,
that's in Egress, for
yeah.
instance.
So, for example, on this coming show now in October, it's we're gonna have core of the five core. Like we have three guitars, bass, and drums, but then we're
Hmm.
gonna have a cello and a violinist. So
Brilliant.
that's gonna be the plan for like this specific show in October.
Very nice. Um, right, going on to the whole American scene, Edu, and we talked about just before we came online tonight. There's so many great American let's just call them post bands for the sake of reckoning. Like you've Explosion of the Sky to Destroy You, Caspian, Pelican Coastlands, Ire Sirens, Ranges, and then you have the Post Festival, which has been growing as well over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Have you plans to get in touch with them or get on that show, or what's the plans?
I've been to the last two, for as a fan.
As a fan? Yeah,
Yeah. And just to watch amazing music, amazing bands,
uh-huh.
and get to know some of my favorite artists. And
Yeah, yeah,
I last time and the last one, I just had the opportunity to meet the people from I Hear Sirens,
uh-huh.
for example. And I mean, before even, like, I've been listening to her music for years.
Yeah, yeah,
And like I've been living in different cities, and uh, like I remember, I mean, I knew about them when I was in New York City, and I would just become a fan right away. And it's like I love the sound. I love the energy and the compositions and how I feel when I listen to it. So
Yeah.
in the last post, I was able to meet them and get to know them, and so it's a treat. It's a treat that this is happening every year close to Chicago. I drive. It's
Yeah.
like
How
three or
far is
four
that for you?
hours.
Oh, that's
It's
enough.
three or no, it's like 4 hours, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you had no excuse there, you do not to get to that really, had you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, so many other, some
Yeah.
SOM
Yeah.
they played, and they're just so good. They're so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw the lineup and I was so close to getting a loan out just to get over and witness it because
Oh,
as I said, I've been to Dunk a couple of times, a good few times. And I
hmm
suppose the lineup here was as good as any Dunk I had seen. It was
hmm
incredible, like it really was. And I just
This year
hope
was very special.
it was. And I hope it grows and gets bigger and brings a lot more bands, from even outside of the States, possibly, if that's even
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Hubris played as well.
yes, they actually did it. That's right. That's right. Another
Yeah,
great band again. We could be here name dropping for the night. You do like there's so many great bands there.
exactly.
How was the American scene anyway, do you think, in this style of music? Like, do you find, I asked this to a few other bands, do they find a need to explore Europe more, get the name out in Europe? Is that where the
I
hub
think so.
is? You think so?
I think so. Yeah, I think if I mean it's I don't I always I play for I like mentioned I play to be happy. That's what makes me
Hmm.
really happy. I don't try to play in stadiums or things like that. If it
Yeah.
happens, something amazing, but that's like it's not my goal, and it's
Yeah.
probably not the style of music that we should be if we want to fill a stadium,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that said, I think it's a healthy scene over here. There's
Mm.
so many great talent.
Yeah.
But if you wanna, yeah, if you definitely wanna kind of like take another like step, you have to
Yeah.
go to Europe for
You
sure,
think so?
and
Yeah.
you have to play dunk, and you have to play a few festivals for sure.
Hmm.
That's where it's more like a global scene in a
It
way,
is. It is. Yeah.
than a local scene. And if you don't do that, then and you're happy with just playing like local shows, that's fine too.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with that. It really depends how on your ambitions and how many people you want to connect with your music. So,
Yeah. And would you like to see yourselves as the Color of Cyan hitting Europe?
oh yeah, for sure. Hey,
Yeah.
Dunk.
Yes, exactly. Jesus. Luke and Voot, lads, if you're listening in, get onto this
No,
guy.
they're amazing. They're amazing. I press all my vinyls with Dunk,
Yeah.
and they're always great people to work with, and so.
Yeah, there's no one has a bad word to say about the guys at Dunk, let's be honest. Right. Before I leave you go, I have three questions I just want to throw at you for a bit of fun, Edu. Three session questions. So the first one I'm going to ask you is if you were to include guest vocals on your next track, who would you like to ask? Anybody, if you want the
John
guest
C.
vocals. Who is
John
it?
C. John C. from
Oh
Egress.
yes, of course. That didn't
Or
take you
just
long. That
or
didn't take you long to answer.
no, he or just hang out. It's whatever,
And pick his brain for a few hours, is it? Yeah.
for sure.
Get inside the mind of the man. Name two bucket list bands you would like to go on tour with.
Ooh, oh my
Hmm.
God.
Yeah. Past or
Mono.
present, Edu. Past or present.
Oh, okay, okay. I mean, okay. I'm gonna say present, but
Yeah.
I I, I can change that really easily. Uh, I will say Mono and that's like so many bands.
There's so many out there, isn't there?
Um, yeah, I was listening to the other days. I put the vinyl of EF.
Yes.
And I was just listening to it and I was like, oh my God, it would be so amazing if we do a tour together. I was just
There you
thinking
go.
that.
There's your answer. Perfect. Mono, EF, and Color Cyan. I
Yeah,
would
that
travel.
would
I would
be
travel to that, Edu. I would travel to that. Right. If you were to score a piece of music for the big screen, what type of film would it be?
something from One Kar Wai.
What is it?
Wong Kar-wai, the director. It's a
Okay.
yeah, it's something from he did 2046, the movie, the film.
Okay.
It's yeah, something anything that I will score anything from him. Or I love films too, so
Yeah.
I can geek out on this too.
well,
um,
well,
um,
there is a great cinematic aspect, as I mentioned earlier, to this style of
yeah,
music, like especially yours. Mm.
yeah, yeah. Um, I can score that. I can score um, Dead. If it Dead or Alive, Stanley Kubrick stuff as well.
Yeah.
Or, um,
I could actually probably interview you on this topic alone another time, could I?
for sure.
So much. There's so many bands out there. Right. That's all my questions, Edu, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh no, no, thank you. It's real honor, real pleasure chatting with you, and
Great stuff.
thank you so much. It's this all this make me so happy.
I'm delighted, and it's all deserved because this album really is something very special. As I said, anybody who loves their music, that's emotionally charged, and sometimes you get lost and you get caught up in trying to describe this type of music. I think you need to hear it and to feel this music. So everybody, The Color of Cyan, Egress is out since the 1st of September. Vinyl, is the vinyl already released?
No, it's on pre-order right now on
Pre-order.
1,000 Arms, and it will be in pre-order pretty soon on Dunk.
Brilliant. So lads, hit their Bandcamp page, that's all I can say. Edu, thanks so much again, and thanks everybody for tuning in, and see you all in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks to Richie Duhig, actually, by the way, who edits and produces the show. Take care. Good night.